Hello, I'm Recoded Zaphod, and welcome to this snapshot experiment slash showcase slash tutorial, I guess. So basically, this is snapshot 19W13A, which has just come out, and they've made it so villagers can breed again, and they've changed the mechanics slightly. So it now requires beds for them to be able to breed. You can see they're producing lots of baby villagers here. Mostly it seems to be the same. To get the hearts, you need the villagers to be willing. And that's the same as it used to be, where they need to have a certain amount of food. But for that to then actually produce a baby villager, there needs to be enough beds for that baby villager in what the villagers think is the village. So initially you need to give all of the villagers in here beds. So I've got them here. And then you can actually destroy these ones. And the villagers still remember that they've got beds. And then you can add in extra beds. And these are the ones which the villagers will be giving to the baby villagers. I'm going to explain why these are out here in a moment. So this is an old design from before you needed beds and didn't have the bed out the back and didn't have this water stream. But effectively, you put the villagers in there. They're standing on a fence post because that way, whenever a baby spawns, it's small enough it can drop down, and then you can take it away with either water streams or a minecart, or put it somewhere you want it to grow up. But yeah, here I'm funneling them away with a water stream. And then up here, they've got a slab, half slab. It's a top half slab, but it's pushed down through their heads. And this means if you're going to throw in food, which you might need to do because they need it, it can be bread, carrots, or potatoes, I believe. I'm using bread because I think it takes less bread per breed than it takes carrots or potatoes, assuming it's the same as it used to be, which I think it is. I haven't actually looked at the code, so I don't know for certain, but giving them lots of either bread or carrots certainly seems to work and keep them breeding. They do also still seem to have a cooldown between when they can first breed and when they can next breed. So if we go out to this end, okay, one of them seems to have escaped. I'm going to have to work out how they managed that. You can see there's 3 in there, and there's one out here. I'm just going to get rid of this one because otherwise he's going to mess up the beds. So somewhere along here, I must have something where it's only 1 high, and he's managed to jump out. So that's going to need fixing. Might be here, right towards the end. Okay, well, I think this should be good enough for now. So with the beds, they register the bed to the new child. So every time it produces a child, it chooses one of the available beds, and these are the furthest distance that it can find a bed for. So it checks a sphere of radius, where is it? I think it's about 47. It's somewhere between 47 and 47 and a half. So you can see over here on my sort of tester, I came up here and discovered that putting in beds on this level allows them to breed because they can assign these beds to the babies, but putting them up here doesn't. They don't count these beds because they're slightly too far. And the same going back, you get them blocked off and it's spherical, it's not a square or taxi cab distance or anything like that. So yeah, I've put them right at the far limit of beds that they can detect and assign to the babies. And the reason for that is once you've got the babies, you actually want to empty out the beds again, because otherwise you'll only ever get as many babies as you've got beds. And you don't want to be coming back to your farm having to destroy and replace all the beds, because that's fairly involved and it requires a lot of effort on your part, and you want a more automatic farm than that. I mean, still you've got to feed them, but you could do that by running a carrot farm into it, or if you've got a really big wheat farm, crafting it into bread and just throwing it into a water stream, which you can run in so it falls in here. So what you do with the babies, you go, one's coming out now, is they get pushed all the way over here and into this holding cell or chamber, and then you can take them off to do what you want with. But they need to be, let's check the numbers, 142 blocks away from the head of the bed. The bed seemed to work by where the head of the bed is. So having a bed like this is the same as having a bed this way round. That's the same distance from over there. So you can have it like this or like this, and it registers it as coming from roughly the same spot. I don't know if it actually does it to one of the corners, so that might change it by up to a block. But from what I could tell from my experiments, it cares about where the head of the bed is, not where the base of the bed is. Right. So yeah, you need the villagers to be, the babies, to be 142 blocks away from the beds, so that when the beds reset, which they do once daily at sundown, I'm not quite sure why they do this. I assume it's because that's when the villagers will try and find the beds to sleep in them. But it appears the check only checks up to a certain distance, because obviously it can't check the whole world. And for some reason that seems to be 142 blocks. So when I get these babies above that distance away from those beds, it won't register them as belonging to those beds, and the beds then get freed up again so that they can be used to breed the next batch of babies. And this stops it becoming a finite amount of babies you can have. So this should carry on infinitely, providing the day cycle continues, and all the babies make it out to the end. And then once out at the end, they can grow up and you can assign professions. I discovered there's a neat trick. You can actually assign professions by moving a career block back and forth. So if you've got a whole load of villagers in here, because babies grow up without a profession, even if their parents do have a profession. I know the ones in the breeder I have over there are neutral villagers, so they don't have a profession. But even if they do, the babies appear to come out without one. That's at least how it works now. Again, this is still in the snapshot, so this could all entirely change. But if you've got a whole load of villagers out here, and they're all got no profession, you can take a profession block. Let's take the composter, and providing it's one that can be pushed by a piston, you can do this with it. So first time you put it down, it's going to randomly assign, that one over there, one of the villagers nearby to its profession, and then every time you push it, it's going to assign another one, and you can keep flicking this back and forth until all the villagers that you want have your chosen profession. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to work with all the blocks, because the piston can't move all the blocks, so for some of them you will have to manually place the block to get the villagers to take on that profession. Notably is the lectern, and that's for librarian villagers, and given that those are the most popular in trading halls because of the enchantment books, that's a bit of a pain, but I guess it's the price you pay. If you want to get lots of librarians, once you've got your collection, you can just place down and break a lectern. Right now, there is a bug that if you try and break a trade person's block while they're trying to use it, the game crashes out. I assume that will probably be patched, but it's worth noting if you're in this snapshot, or I think the last couple possibly, and if you try and break the I can't remember the actual name of them, the tradesperson blocks, they'll crash out the game if they're trying to use them at the same time. So yeah, that's a little something you can do with your villagers at the end. And you should see now, this is coming to nightfall, and are these... Okay, these aren't trying to breed at the moment because I've actually given them plenty of beds. So I've got 8 villagers in this little pod here. It's quite hard to count, but you can see sort of 4 spots, and you can see there's 2 in each one. So when they breed, you can get 4 out every time they breed, assuming they all breed at more or less the same time. I think there's a slight randomness in how long they wait before trying to breed again. So once they all try to breed, you get 4 villagers, and they can do that about 4 times a day. I'm erring on the side of caution and assuming they can do it 5 times a day. So I've got 5 times as many beds as villagers could potentially be born in a day. So I've got 20 beds because I'm getting potentially 4 from there each time, and that could potentially happen up to 5 times a day. I think realistically it's probably only about 4 times a day. But 5th one, it's worth having the extra beds just for safety in case there's still some babies in the water when the reset rolls around. The reset actually occurs at exactly 13,000 if you're using the time system. So that's actually after the player is able to get into a bed. So I think it's also the same time that villagers will try and go to beds. So if you're playing in a survival world and you want to sleep, you need to wait until the sun's actually completely down before you use your bed, and not use it immediately when you first can, because doing that will change your time and the villagers won't reset the beds who they belong to. So you end up running out of beds during the next day and your villagers will get locked out. When your villagers get locked out because of beds, you'll actually see the angry particle on them. So you see here, you could have just seen it just then. Although they're willing to breed because they've got the hearts, so they've obviously got enough food, they don't have enough beds for all the baby villagers in the area, which is giving them these angry particles. There you go. So yeah, you can see here there's 3 baby villagers there, and I appear to have 4 beds. So I would have expected them to be happy to breed once more. Is there another one in here somewhere? Yes. Okay, these ones are still in range because the range stops just here. So this was my testing for where the range stops. So I think the range stops just there, although a lot of these should be in range then. So it might have been I erred on the side of caution here when I set up the distance. But certainly at least some of these are in range of the beds over the far side, so it's not able to reset because it's still counting those beds as belonging to those villagers and these ones. So you're getting the angry particles and they're not actually producing any babies despite being willing. It's also worth noting I tried here with a straight water stream, but unfortunately they actually try and pathfind back to their beds, which means even with the 1 block stop here and blue ice in, they quite often just stop there because they're trying to fight the current and go back the other way. And the usual method where you can put a water source above so it keeps it going doesn't work with baby villagers because they're only 1 high. They'll actually sit under the extra water source, so that won't help either. So on my finalized design, I've gone with the stepping water streams. So as soon as 1 water stream ends, it steps down and I start the next water stream. So that'll take them all the way to the pod at the end. Right, so I think that's enough of an explainer, enough of me talking. If you want to see a block by block tutorial, leave me a comment and I can do one if enough people want it. I think it's mostly self-explanatory, particularly if you've built one of these types of breeders in the old versions. Also remember, this is from a snapshot, so if you're trying it later on, it might not work anymore. I'll try and keep the description updated with what versions it's working in, particularly if this video gets lots of interest. Right. That's going to be all from me for this snapshot experiment. If you've got any feedback or questions, I would love to hear from you down in the comments. I've been Recoded Zaphod, and thanks for watching. Whoop.